one folder, and Claude runs my whole life and my whole business, my CRM, my projects, my journal, my research, all of it, plain text on my machine. Let me just show you the actual thing. In order to best explain to you what this folder contains, I go into our membership and I will download the scaffold because that's the raw structure of the folder that I'm using. And by the way, the whole membership was built from within the folder that I'm using. There you see how powerful this actually is. This is the business that's running behind this, and I download the scaffold. If you want to get this, you can join us for free and download it there too. And here's this folder. I drag and drop it onto the desktop so we have a direct comparison. So I can open this up and here we go. This is what the scaffold gives you, and this is exactly the structure that I'm using in my own folder. As you can see here, when I open up this one, see in comparison, we have the deliverables folder. This is mine. This is the scaffold. We have the expansions. We have PKM. We have the team folder, team inbox, and we have the team knowledge. So you see, it's a direct replica of my personal folder. And by the way, also the folder what my co-founder Paco Cantero uses running multiple businesses. So it is scalable. But what's important to understand from the get-go is that this is my personal folder. It's not a folder I invite my team members to. It is a place for my personal knowledge management, for my meeting notes, for my knowledge base and interconnection of things that happen in my life. And this is why we have in PKM a subfolder structure where we not only have the CRM, okay, with the people in there. So you see we have people, we have organizations, we also have files, obviously, documents. So there I have all the invoices and contracts and everything in there. I have a folder for images. You see it goes all the way back to 2007. So whenever I found images, this was also backfilled. We have a journal. The journal goes back to 2017. How is this possible when I just starting this beginning of the year? Well, I backfilled everything. I was using external tools like day one to do journaling since 2017. I used Heptabase for my knowledge base. Before that, I used Tana, and before I was using Notion, and I moved my knowledge all over the place, and I always lost the connections along the way. Obviously, I also used Obsidian, which was local first, but then there was a lack of features that the online tools provided, and all this changed in the beginning of this year. And why did this change? Well, it all changed with openClaw, which was ClaudeBot back in the time. And what did this do? It was allowing AI to access your computer and your local files and work in your name on the computer and on the browser. And that was something that the native AI tools didn't provide yet. But the feedback in the world was so amazing that so many people wanted to have this personal assistant helping you with your knowledge and with your work that in no time Claude came out with Claude Cowork that allowed you now to access a local folder and make work through Claude on a local folder. Later in the video you will see I open up a terminal to use Claude inside a terminal. A thing many people are still scared of using. However, once you see how I'm using it, how simple it is, and why I'm not using Cowork. The main reason is that, first of all, everything is raw in this sense, okay? I have a local folder only, and I have a terminal that has the raw version of Claude that has the best capabilities and all these things to work with me in there. It gives me also a lot of flexibility to build my own setup around it, and therefore I'm literally just using the Claude in terminal and myPKA. This doesn't mean that you cannot use the Claude Desktop version, but if you use Claude Desktop that I have open here, never use this chat. This is useless. I will make another video where I also say that you shouldn't use ChatGPT because it's the same reason. There is no context for AI to work with. Each session starts from scratch, even if they try to sell you there's an auto memory and it reminds you over time the more you use it. This is nonsense. The real moment when things shift is when you build persistent memory for AI inside this folder structure and you remain full control, because also relying on the local folder structure, I can now use Gemini, Codex, any other LLM I want. I can point it to the same folder and just switch out the brain. However, I prefer Claude, and with the new Opus 4.8 release, this is amazing. I used Claude all the way to build the myICOR application, the membership, the core structure, the landing page. I'm also using it for support tickets and many more things. So this being said, on chat, you had already something like projects, and this allowed you to upload some context that you can always use. That was a great step in the right direction, but everything changed the moment they launched Cowork. And in here, what the big difference is that you can choose a folder, and I will go to desktop. I use myPKA, not the scaffold that I already established. I allow it, and now Cowork is in this folder, and I can already ask, who are you? And it won't say Claude. It will say, I'm Larry, your team orchestrator at myPKA. I run the myPKA scaffold in this folder. It mentions the other team members that I have in this folder, and you saw the team folder, but this is not a real human team. It is my agents working in there. And this works because it loaded in the Claude.md file. However, this one is very short in comparison to other people's Claude.md, because the folder structure is structured in a different way. Very quickly, before I go back into the folder to show you how this works, I just want to mention I would never use Cowork to work with. Why? As I mentioned, there are several team members, and we have one orchestrator in there, Larry. And this is my Spock, my single person of contact. I can reach out through any terminal I want. Is it a Cowork? Is it on mobile? As long as I have connection to the folder, he will identify himself as Larry. And then he hands off my work by understanding what I actually want to the perfect team member who is the best agent to work on this. And if you use Cowork, Larry will just pretend, and it's just switching heads, which is also a benefit already because he loads in the knowledge of these agents. But essentially, this is not the most effective way to use this folder structure that we have here, because here it will be only one agent working at a time. And most other scaffolds and things that you can download out there, they have personal assistants. It's one assistant doing all the jobs, and that makes it very token intensive because it has always to need to know all the knowledge in brain and so on. And here we really split this off. So let's have a look into the folder again, how this looks. So here we already have something very important with Penn, Pax, Nolan and so on. These are literal team members living in this folder. If you ever worked with Claude, you might know, if you show the hidden files, that there is a .claude folder that Claude creates, and it creates agents for you. You can download agents and all this, and you see these agents live here too. However, they have very basic information in here, because it's pointing actually to this team folder whenever Larry needs some help from an expert, and goes into these folders. And in these folders, we have this agent.md file, and this is where the actual instructions live. This makes it LLM agnostic. I can switch from any LLM, because in the end, it's always pointing to this agents.md and not Claude.md. And each agent also is reflected, in my case, with their own avatars. This is Iris, the design agent, helping me with the brand design to keep things consistent. Or the front-end developer, who is this guy, Felix, all right? And they, as you can see, they all have their agents.md files that are optimized to my specific needs. How do you scale this? Well, when you download this folder for free, which is a perfect replication of mine, you will start with Larry, who is the orchestrator. That's really the critical person in this whole team who is helping with the orchestration of whatever I reach out to. He's my Spock, single person of contact. I just talk to him. I never talk to any of these other agents. He will talk to them, because whatever I need, he translates it in a perfect wording for these agents and hands it off to them, and they work on it, and they will get back to Larry with the results. Remember, we are still inside this one folder. Here's the folder structure that I'm showing you. And in order to better explain to you how this works, I wanted to compare this to actually Anthropic, the company behind Claude, published how their agents work. And you see here, this is the deliverables folder where my team provides anything that we are working on for me to review. And here's the video that I'm currently recording. And I said, provide me some assets to best explain this to you. And it created this asset. And I opened this asset to explain this to you, because what you see here now is a direct comparison of the new Opus 4.8 dynamic workflow structure that Claude has now natively, something that I'm using for months already just based on the local folder structure. Let's have a look how this is working for Claude. And then I explain to you how my team is already working with this and why you can use this with any other LLM too. So the dynamic workflows means that Claude just launches tasks based on what you request. It could be one or several tasks at a time. And that's what Claude is really good at, to run things in parallel. And they had this for a long time already called agent teams, but this is all something that was just in Claude code, or you were only able using it in the API version and so on. And what you see here is literally the reason why I'm not using Claude Cowork, because in Claude Cowork, as I said, he will stay straight in one line. He will switch heads and starts working on this, and then he will get back as Larry. And the thing is that I created this folder structure where the rules are that Larry is the only contact I'm talking to. I hand over the request and he will send this off to the different agents, and he's literally doing it. You will see this in a moment where I compare running something on my folder versus an empty folder. So stay tuned, we'll dive into this deeper. But just for the understanding, so I have a request. Larry will look up who are my team members, who would be the most capable to complete the task. He hands over the task to these. So what Claude built here is, it launched different tasks for different sub-agents, and then we have the implementer, what they call, and those are the Claude instances doing the implementation. And then after this, they have a verifier layer where they verify if what was implemented is actually correct according to what was requested. If it was not, then there is a separate fixer coming in, fixing any issues that you had, and then he hands it over to Claude. And that's something we have in this folder structure. Remember, here's the team folder. I have Larry, who is on top. That's the only person I contact. I request something. He will check now the team roster to see if there is any fitting team member. He does this by going inside the folder into the agent index.md. If we open this agent index, this is how it looks like. This is the file that Larry has at hand, and he gets the information about all the team members in here. But you see also the place where these team members live, and also SOP connections, standard operating procedures, work instructions for work streams. Okay, so there is exactly what Larry needs to know to launch this agent, to load in the context of this agent, and all the other referenced documentation this agent needs to do the best work for my personal life and business. And that makes it highly customized and persistent. I don't have to restart every time to explain, like in ChatGPT or in Claude Chat, what I want. I have, for example, Pixel to make the thumbnails. This is tied to some guidelines, the design system, and SOPs, how to style images. And whenever I say I need a thumbnail, Larry will hand the work over to Pixel and he will start creating this. So you see here, for example, SOP 8 generate a styled image. If you go back into the folder, you see here there's team, and here's the team knowledge. This is separate. I have SOPs, standard operating procedures. And by the way, here now you see that under the hood is running our ICOR methodology. That's something that thousands of businesses worldwide use to manage their teams, to manage their projects, their goal setting, and all these things, and the business knowledge management to make the team work efficiently with each other. And all we did was applying the same structure to AI, so AI works as efficient. So this saves also a lot of tokens, because it will never load in all the SOPs. It will always just load in based on the requested task what is necessary. So you see Pixel, he is SOP 8, generate a styled image. When we go here, SOP 8, there it is. And this is it. And you see there's metadata. I can even open this up in Obsidian. And I can here, there's everything they need to know in order to create this image in the way that I want it. And if anything goes off rail or something goes wrong, I'm not writing this manually. I'm telling Larry, my single person of contact, that We need to improve how Pixel works and update any related documentation. And he perfectly understands that he needs to go here, either create a new standard operating procedure or update one, edit one. And you see everything is through wiki links interconnected. So here are the work streams. Here's, for example, the video publishing lifecycle. And here we are. This is the whole work stream. And you see there is a lot of different team members involved. So the owner is always Larry, and he hands off the work, and they know how to work through this work stream. There's even a versioning in there, so the team can remember what updated and why we changed things. You see related guidelines, related SOPs. And this is not something I thought of. Well, what I know is my workflow. I perfectly understand this in a tool agnostic way. And therefore, if you understand this, you can already improve your business a lot. You don't need AI to become more productive in business and have less friction when you search for information. That's something we taught for over 4 years now, how this works. AI is just making things even more efficient if you understand how this is structured, okay? So you see here, there's hard rules, there is the structure they need to follow and all this. So I'm not diving into the individual things, because the thing is, even if I would just copy paste the team knowledge for you, it'd be useless. And that's what was always the case with templates, because people download templates and then they try to apply it to their own life and then they get stuck. And that's why we need to have something flexible enough where we have all a common ground that we can work from, but then make it highly specific for yourself. And this is why we strongly believe that this personal knowledge assistance, PKA as we call it, is something that the human team members should use to optimize their own expert work instead of trying to force AI onto the whole team. That is a whole other story on how you can optimize this, and it needs even more time before you would even involve AI. What we need to do is improving the individual's work and clarity what is necessary. So I hope you see now how things are interconnected. We have the team, we have Larry who understands who is in the team. The team all have their own specialized knowledge, and this knowledge is saved here. And why separately? Well, maybe there's an SOP that 3 or 4 different agents need the same thing. I always want to ensure that I have a single source of truth of the information that these agents need. So I just need to update one place and one place only, and it affects everybody else in the same way. This way I don't have duplicated information, I stay independent, I can use different LLMs, I can even hire people, because this is exactly the structure that I worked for decades with teams, even in big corporate. So when we go back now to this picture, it might make more sense now to you what's happening here. So you see Larry is the single person of contact. I hand over the work and he checks the index of the team, finds the right person, hands off the work even in parallel to the perfect agents, and they start implementing. But instead of going back to a verifier layer that says nothing, we have Vera. She is the quality assurance person in this whole process. She knows the structure. She lives in here too. So when we go down here, we have here Vera, QA specialist, and here's her instructions so that she knows what to do. Here, critical blocks delivery. It finds all the things that is a no-go for me. So whenever they hand something back to me that I think, what the heck was going on, Vera will also learn to improve how she double checks before it even reaches my inbox again. That's where they go loops until it reaches the quality level that I want. And this is how it works in companies too, at a certain scale. So therefore, they have this feedback loop. And the more we go through this, the less intervention of Vera and others are needed, because then we also improve the skills on the go whenever something went off rail. I then say, because then the work gets handed over to Larry and Larry hands it over to me as the end result. And then I say, I'm not satisfied with this. I tell Larry and he will update the team accordingly. So I say, man, next time we need to get this first or whatever. And therefore he will go into the SOPs. He is the person who then works with Nolan, who is the HR person, to optimize these skills and all this. So when you heard about skills, that you can download plugins and all this, this is what lives in this .claude folder, okay? You can download skill. I don't have one skill in here. I have no plugin, nothing. I don't want it because, again, like the templates that I mentioned before, it will just add noise to a highly streamlined system that I'm running. So the less I have from a community or other people in here, and the more I build it myself, yourself, the better. And if you're inside the community, we offer these expansion packs where you can download the app developer pack. That's exactly the agents I'm using to build the myICOR application. There's Vera, the QA person, because that's the latest point where you actually need to have some feedback. There's also a security engineer in here. We have the designer pack where we have these agents, and you can download this. This is based on my use case, but I always keep saying, build it from yourself. These are basics. And you can, even without downloading any of these packs, you can go for yourself by simply telling Larry, I need to get something done. And the free downloadable scaffold that you get inside myICOR, you have Larry, the orchestrator, you have Nolan, the HR person, you have Pax, the researcher, you have Penn, who is whatever you add there, screenshot or anything, meeting notes or anything, he make journal entries every day. And that's, if you're not into journaling because you think it's romantic, this is nothing about romance. Guys, this is about just collecting information on the fly. I just keep capturing, and instead of just having fleeting notes of captured information all over the place and across different tools, I have it now all in one folder, but I don't need to search it because Penn creates proper entries out of it and interconnects the things in my folder that are relevant to this entry that I made. So if I make an entry with a new person that I just met, Penn will also ensure that in the CRM, this new person will get added. And this is where you start cross-connecting things. I can send in audio messages, as I showed you in another video, record audio, throw in the audio file. Claude perfectly understands this. It extracts my transcript and creates journal entries out of it. And this is so powerful. The moment you first ask for something random that you captured 2 months ago. And it not only comes up with the relevant context, but if you provide why you're looking for this information, it has the full context of you, your business and everything, and therefore gives you a perfect output of what is needed. And the thing is, you don't pay a penny for any application that lives in the cloud. It is all in this local folder. And all you need to do, if you want to back the things up, you can on Mac, for example, use the Time Machine, or you just have any other backup software where you back up your folder in a frequent basis, and many other ways to do this, not even using GitHub or anything like this. Very simple. That's the ultimate goal and highly accessible. In the course that we provide along with this free scaffold, this is where you literally learn how this scaffold was built and the whole thought process behind it. So you see when you go in here, each step for each individual folder that we add to the team, you can go through it. You can open this up to read why I added, what I added, and all the things. You have the instructions here, how this was done. So if you really want to learn how we've built this folder structure and how we are using it, and this course is for you. Because we strongly believe not to hand you a fish, we want to teach you fishing, so you really can go from there. And it was never easier than now, because with Larry, Nolan and Pax, you have all you need to grow your folder to exactly the scale that I have it here. Because if you hand over a work, Larry doesn't find a team member that is capable of executing the task, he will reach out to Nolan and hire a new person. And this works by Nolan going to Pax, who goes online and does research about what are the best skills, human skills, to accomplish this work. What is the best designer? What is the best accountant? And all these things. And then creates automatically these agents, this agent file here. Well, in my case, it creates even the image, okay? And then ties it up to the index. So Larry knows now that we have a new team member perfectly capable of doing so. So this is, for example, with this image here. This was Charta, just what you just saw, the peacock. She created this visualization based on the myICOR branding that Iris was creating the design system for. And all of this lives in here. We have the design system in the guidelines. See, these are all the guidelines. And then here are the myICOR guidelines. And here's the brand system of, the colors for myICOR, the component, the imagery. And then again, there's always an index that makes it highly efficient for Larry to find what is needed. And this makes it really capable. And if we think about size, look at this. We have 24,000 items in there, files, okay? But it is just 53 gigabyte, this folder. I downloaded tools That might sound a lot, but if I think about this is not so much, and if this becomes anytime a problem, I could always offload bigger files to a cloud service and then connect it to my PKA. So talking about cloud service, let's dive into this. So I will delete now the scaffold because now we are inside my own. When it comes to working with external sources, it doesn't mean that everything is just inside the folder. This is what is related to me and my life. But I'm an expert working inside my ICOR, and I'm doing the support tickets, I'm doing the coding work, I'm doing the YouTube videos that you're watching. All this was done with 5 people in the past, human people in the past in the paperless movement, that we worked together, where I delegated my work to these people. And this is where losing jobs becomes real. It is no joke, because this makes me so much more efficient. It works 24/7 for me. It's accessible on mobile. I can at any time reach out to this folder to Larry and ask anything I need, kick off tasks, anything like this. And we go into this in a moment how this works. So I showed you can open up the folder in Claude Cowork, but how I prefer it to open it in the terminal. And it is as easy as right-clicking on my folder, new terminal at folder. And here we are. This is the terminal that so many people are scared of. And in this terminal, I just call Claude. See, I'm just writing down Claude and it launches Claude. If this is not working for you, you haven't installed it yet. But all you just need, search for how to install Claude CLI, install Gemini CLI, install Code CLI, and you will always get to pages like this where you just need to copy this one line and paste it into the terminal. This is it. You just copy it. I even help you to copy this, and then I just paste this in here. You hit enter and it will install Claude for you. And there's even an onboarding and things like that to get this to work, where you then log into your account. You can use this with your Pro plan, with your Max plan. See, it installed it. It was already installed in the first place, and then it's back in the terminal, and I just need to enter Claude, and you're here in Claude. And now I can talk to Claude here like I would in the Claude Desktop or anywhere else. It just looks a bit different, but I love this minimalism here because I have a folder and a direct contact to my terminal and a folder structure next to it. And the real way I'm working on this, and I made a video about this already, is using VS Code. Okay, here we are in VS Code. This is my day-to-day use case I'm having here, and here I can open different terminals, and you see I'm running here several terminals in parallel, where Larry is multiplied and working on completely different things, and I can keep perfectly track of this. I can even drag this out and have then to split view and all these things. But I like this because here I see directly what's happening. I can have here the team knowledge. I can open this, things and so on. You might use Obsidian, that works too, but I personally still prefer VS Code. And it doesn't do anything different than we do here. And this is the most simplistic way. I just wanted to show you that there's something else, and there's a video on YouTube that you can watch where I show more about this. So I ask here, like I did for Cowork, who are you? I'm Larry, your team orchestrator. See? And now I can ask anything. So what we want to do now, I want to have this Claude session with this folder, and I will create a new folder, no PKA. And this is just an empty folder. And I open also a terminal on this folder, same way I did for Larry. I will launch Claude. And if you want to keep track of, here on top you see no PKA, and here's myPKA, okay? So this shows that these terminals are running in these folders. Here I need to trust this folder first. And now if I say here, who are you? There we are. Who are you? You are Claude Code, Anthropic's official CLI. See, this is not personalized at all. So just this comparison already shows you how aware he is. And now I want to ask something that I would do on a daily basis. So here I have a scratch pad, and I just want to use this simple, very minimalistic prompt. You might have heard about prompt engineering, and it's all nonsense. If you have a folder like this, you have all the context that you need, and you can add less and less context to your prompt because your team knows what this is all about. So this is why I will use this. And here's a very dynamic use case that involves a lot of things. Create me a social image in square format with an infographic that represents the last week's new relevant releases about AI productivity. This is so much in here already. It needs to be able to create an image which Claude isn't out of the box. It needs to understand how to create an infographic. It needs to research what are actually the relevant releases about this. So it needs to go online and find information. And it should create a LinkedIn post content that I prefer to have in my voice and not something AI generated slop content. So this is where this becomes really powerful, because now we are not only training AI to speak in my voice, but it also has my brain and thoughts and my perspective on things and all the things, and it will take this into account. And I'm doing this for the first time, this comparison test, and I'm really curious about the outcome too. So I will copy this prompt now into both terminals, and then we will see what happens. I will also open along the way this folder here, and I guess he will work inside deliverables. Let's see. And here, obviously, this is an empty folder, and I expect now that Claude will create something inside this folder. All right, let's go. We are using even X high effort, so it has all the capabilities. Opus 4.8, and here he tries to help me. He recognized the time. Obviously, he's faster because this Claude doesn't need to look through my content here. But when it comes to the quality of the output, this is where we hopefully will see that there will be a huge difference. Let's see. So he's already doing web research. This is something I don't like. If Claude does native web research, I trained myPKA, the researcher, to have API connections to Perplexity and Brave Search, so he gets even better results, hopefully content-wise, than the native web search that I get from Claude. This one is still doodling, and now he goes. See, good one. This is a multi-step job. So let me lay out how I'm routing it before I spin anyone up. Here's the chain I see. Research, PAX, infographic, Charta, LinkedIn post, Sage. These are the 3 agents that I have for the specialists, and you see the explanation too. Before I send the team off, 2 quick scoping calls, okay? So what do we want? Which slice of AI productivity should the weekly roundup focus on? Knowledge work, AI coding, AI for creators, broad mix. Let's go for knowledge work, because this is the thing we're talking about right now. What angle and voice for the LinkedIn post? Well, my voice. Again, not much context. Let's see how far they get. Here, I have a clear verified picture of the standard blah blah blah. Chrome is available. I render with headless Chrome. So he's going now to Chrome, and he wants to create now an infographic. Let's see. And please keep in mind, obviously, that we have a specific brand design in myICOR, which is the dark mode, brass accents, and so on. And here we go. It started already creating the infographic, and here it perfectly rendered, and it looks great. I mean, this is what you get out of the box from Claude just asking this. Isn't this amazing? That's why you see a lot of these things appearing on social media too. As you can see, it seems it had some knowledge about me, because here's the paperless movement. So there is some auto memory in the backend that it took advantage of in this case. And that's why it is probably even more likely that it created something useful for me than it might be for you, but not too bad at all. And here's the LinkedIn post. Let's see. In the last 2 weeks, AI quietly, blah, 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 Google Gemini. So it's a standard thing. And that's what I would expect if I would just ask ChatGPT the same thing. This one is still working here. And this is where I don't mind about time, as long the quality is beyond what I would get out of the box. And when I talk about quality, as you see, for example, here, PAX, he started research. He uses Perplexity to query Perplexity. He uses, in addition, web search. He combines things. He reviews things. I have even an agent called Scout. He's the trend. He looks for trends and so on. So this is where I can really have a guided process. But what I usually have, as you have seen in VS Code, I have several terminals running in parallel. I have a lot of things that I do in parallel, multitasking along the day. I'm not just giving these tasks and let them work 24/7 without looking at it. I'm sitting here working, recording this video, for example, and at the same time, my agents are running. Larry and the team is working in the background, does a lot of things, and I constantly can check they are working when I'm working. So it's very unlikely that I leave the office and just let them go. But if so, I can perfectly just hit /remote, see, remote control. If I do this, I can open the normal Claude, and I showed this in other videos in much more detail, open up the Claude mobile application and just access it here by going to code inside the mobile application. And here's the session that is currently running here, and I can just enter hi here. So you see that this is true, hi, and it should now appear here. Well, it's now overlapping with the reply from Larry, but here it is, hi, see? And now he will be confused, but I can actually, I can cancel it. Now I interrupted him, that was not so smart, but I always can just say continue. Okay, so here, Pax made a much more thorough research. And here we go, routing now, step 1. Pax finished his research work, 108,000 tokens. And, you know, that's the thing where if you understand the different workflows, you can become more token efficient by understanding what needs a lot of brain power versus what is very straightforward. I could now downgrade Pax to a cheaper model and, you know, things like this, and only rely on the output from Perplexity and things like this. But right now, things have changed again with, I'm on a max plan with $200 per month, and I only hit ceilings if I'm really doing heavy coding. Otherwise, this type of work, I never hit any ceiling, and that's perfect. But we have a lot of members using the Pro plan perfectly with this folder structure too. Now you see, this is what he found. But he also added now confidence levels here. How true this is, that this is true. Because doing online research, even using Brave Search and Perplexity, these tools also hallucinate. So there's always a feedback loop, as I showed you earlier, where he double checks the results, maybe launches another search again just to compare it. So we can be really accurate what we get out here. And now he's continuing and he says dispatching Charta and Sage. And here you see that he's literally using the team members in from these folders, not only pretending to work in a folder. Why? Because you see them here and you see them down here, that these names show up as actual sub-agents working on these things. And I can now hit Control B, and this means it moves all into the background, and I can perfectly now keep talking to Larry in the same session. See, they are now running in parallel, and now I can ask a different question in between. For example, what's Paco's latest article on myICOR? Share link. So why do I say this? Well, first of all, it needs to understand who Paco is. So if I paste this here too, let's see what happens. Maybe he knows it from some auto. See, myICOR needs to be connected first. It currently only exposes authentication. I have our myICOR MCP there. That's why he knows about myICOR. I didn't connect it yet because I resetted the computer. So we are actually on a fresh computer here too. I don't need to have the MCP because the team is actually working on the database in Supabase. So we have a connection to Supabase, which is the backend, the database where all myICOR lives on. All right, so it can access this. It can go into the different tables. It looks up Paco's articles now, see? And he will even give me the link directly to open this article inside myICOR, versus here this guy already struggled because he doesn't have the context. And how do I provide this context? This is again the team knowledge, and in team knowledge I have a file called .env, and that's a file that only stays local, that has all the API keys and tokens necessary for the team to work. And yet I have Vex, the security engineer, and a combination with Nolan, where only specific agents inside the team folder will get access to specific API keys, and this is checked with hooks. If they try to access something they are not allowed to, it blocks the things. And I'm using this for over a year now. I found this very reliable, and here we are, found it, Paco's latest, your private CRM is already broken. Here's how AI makes things. This is where he already shares this, and he got blocked by the recent restrictions that I gave to the team. And now I had separate folders before that folder. I just recently merged everything in here, and that's why these things happen now every now and then. But the good thing is he didn't stop. He sends me now to Paco's Medium, because he's publishing on Medium. And here we are, the link is correct. Here's Paco's article on Medium, published in AI Advances. Already 191 claps. Congratulations, Paco. Awesome article. Paco has thousands of I think 6,000 contacts as a multi-business owner and working in various types of businesses. If you want to manage your contacts properly, Paco is the guy to go to, and he shows in this article how he does this with his own PKA, connecting to an external tool. But he also has everything inside his folder here that he needs to have the right context. He works works the same way. He writes the articles that he publishes using his local folder too, as much as I do the video creation and the other things. So that's why we know it is scalable and it is outperforming anything that we used before. And we always maxed out the productivity tools that we used before. See, I said you have access via thing. And then now he says this is Mac's lane, because Mac is the guy who works for the API and the automations. If you download the free folder, Mac is there out of the box because he helps you to connect to external tools easily. So now it's working. Mac actually has the allowance to do this. He goes to Supabase, he checks out the projects, he lists the tables, he's executing now the search. And now he will come back with the link. Now you can say, why would you do this? It takes forever to get this. Well, that's just a demonstration here. That's not something I would do in this context. I'm just showing that it is possible to do. And even if I'm on the go, if I reach out and I can use Haiku or something like this, that very quickly can search things, I could perfectly reach out via my mobile. Hey, can you quickly check out this article, find it for me? And locally on this machine, he will open up the folder. He will check out the team. The team has access to all the external tools. And now on my mobile version of Claude, I can see information that is living in Supabase or whatever you connect there, like Notion or ClickUp that we have connected in our case, things like this. So while we are still working here, I want to also talk about action versus information, because what we have here is information. This is a place where I interconnect everything together. Even that you see here in PKA, based on the myLife concept, the structure that we structure our personal knowledge around key elements, projects, and topics. This is a prioritization setting, okay? So key elements is everything that affects my life, like my health, my family, my business. All this is in here to strategize my approach to business, brainstorm about the next steps, think about my health. I have in this folder all my health data back to 2015. All the Apple Watch data and all this thing lives in here because I have much better context than any other doctor can have now with this if I ask her a question. Therefore, I have an agent called Vita and she has access to this data and interprets it, my blood test, all these things to see in context of my life and throughout the whole time. And I was moving many times, and what I always find if I go to a doctor, they always start from scratch. They have just snapshots and they never look holistically into my health. And that's what I have here now, which doesn't mean that I don't need a doctor. In fact, I would love if my doctor would have something like this to get a broader context about me and get different perspectives on the same thing to make then the right decision as an expert. That's how I see AI be really powerful, that an expert can actually leverage an ongoing knowledge base growing, and even if it is allowed for privacy reason, obviously, but seeing that interconnection between different patients who have similar symptoms, I'm sure there will be complete different insights. And in fact, inside our membership, we have plenty of practitioners who have client work and do exactly this, and they are mind blown. They anonymize, only hand over non-client specific information to the AI and get out the information they need, but all with the context. So for example, a friend of ours is also a practitioner. She published a book, and when I told her, just place your book in here, now you have already the context and now you can talk against your own book. This is mind-blowing how you start interconnecting and getting perspectives thanks to the team that you have here. And that's what we are doing, Paco and I, with our own book, the ICOR Journey, where the whole ICOR methodology is written down. This is inside here and it has the full context. Obviously also full context of all the courses that we have, the lessons, all the podcasts, videos and articles from Paco and so on. So this makes now this team highly efficient when it comes to creating new, relevant, useful content for our members that doesn't feel like AI generated, because it's not. It's all based on our own knowledge and we are sitting here and writing it and are the brains doing the thinking. But the searching and connecting of information, this is what is offloaded, and it removes so much friction that you're constantly in this creative mode instead of getting interrupted with, where did I place this? How do I find this? And then you have things scattered out and you are scared to close windows because you are afraid to lose all the information. All right, agent build, Square AI release released. So the deliverables there. See, he made a high-res solution. We get double the size, and it is aligned. See, it mentions even the guideline, which is a document in a team knowledge that he aligned to. And Sage's LinkedIn post is there too. So let's see what he brought up. And here we are, it's in the deliverables, in the inbox. This is the infographic. Now let's open up the other one side by side. And here we see it has chosen a structure based on most important releases and highlighted the things from top to bottom. I like this, it's much easier to read. It's all on our brand design. It has exactly the structure I wanted compared to this, which is very generic. See, there's on the first Gemini Spark, Claude Managed Agents. It's not even mentioning Opus 4.8. Guys, this is the difference, okay? This is full context. I can say now, save this locally in the news, create a LinkedIn post, because I have Buzz, who is connected with Metricool, which is a social media publishing service that can create these posts now, upload the image and create the LinkedIn post, combined with what Sage created here. This is the LinkedIn post. And here we are, this is the LinkedIn post report that he created, the voice reference that he used. Again, it's in the team knowledge guidelines, myICOR writing, Tom voice patterns that we created based off hundreds of videos that I made talking freely. And also it found other things that are relevant to this thing. Cornerstone patterns, ready to post draft. And this combined with the social media image and even hashtags provided, all based on what we usually use. Alternative hook lines if I want to change anything. Square infographic. Here is the description of the infographic. So I could also create a workflow against this. But here, the scoring, okay? Avatar fit, which means our persona. Because obviously my folder contains all the information about our typical member, the busy professionals, small to mid-sized businesses. All these things are taken into consideration as context to build something very specific for our needs, what we need, and not something generic. And then here, posting plus engagement. Here we go for Buzz. So if I want to now schedule this, I would just hand it over, or Larry would hand it over to Buzz to create this now, to publish it. It checks how many characters are. Well, and all the research that we did, how we want to approach LinkedIn and X and so on. Then the voice safety check, privacy gate, because this is also important to me as I have both inside the same folder. I don't want to leak any of my private information or my personal thoughts. And that's why there is a coded check that ensures that this is not happening. Obviously, you should always double check because you can never trust that things go this way. But I can tell you, I worked with humans, with teams, with consultants, with freelancers and so on. And how many times I realized, guys, you published something that we would never say publicly. In fact, it makes us look stupid or not knowing and so on. So I would have to train this human being, my expertise, to really understand how to post in my voice, in our company's values and so on. And that's something obviously that is very common, but then these people become bottlenecks over time. The longer they are in, the more you rely on them. They cannot go to a holiday. They cannot go make a sick day, because the thing is, everything goes through them. And the thing is, they burn out. I don't say we don't need these people anymore. If you can afford teams with few human beings, imagine now that you have a social media consultant helping you, and they will build a knowledge base like this using AI to help them to understand things, but they do the thought process, what works best based on their own experiences, and then they build this inside your business together with AI, because they are still the experts in social media management, for example. So this is how I see it could work inside a business too, where you have a folder like this, you give them AI and you provide them a set of guidelines that are common for the whole company that might live on G Drive, Dropbox, SharePoint or whatever. You point AI towards this, so it should stay inside this guardrails. And then the humans can start creating their own standard operating procedures and guidelines together with AI based on what they need, and then start working with this, and it will empower them. It doesn't mean that they become redundant over time, because their expertise remains. That's the beautiful thing. If you do it all, like me building a membership website, being a YouTuber, having corporate experience. This is a vast experience that not so many people have, that is very broad and generalistic. Same for Paco, who is a coder, who is a multi-business owner with brick and mortar business and digital business, and even a marketing agency managing 70 people, I mean human beings, right? Big events and all this in parallel. This is not something that you can now hand over to AI and it will take over all this. So this means even that you can very quickly build a landing page or something with AI. It will never look good if you don't have the expertise. What are the proper rules? You can build this out, can research, and I never learned so much in such a short time working with AI, because now I have the researcher and he brings me best practices and industry standards and easier explanation or different perspectives on the same problem. So I can understand this. And this is something that makes us much more efficient and much more productive at work when we approach it from this perspective, instead of thinking we put AI on top of a company or a team and everything will become more productive. That's why I perfectly understand that all the statistics that we see now from these companies failing applying AI is nothing different from all the companies I worked before failing to implement automation or business process optimization. All of them say we have to become better. The team has to go to some coaching sessions. They come back. They just complain how toxic everything is. They come back and work the same thing, just using different buzzwords. And this is what's happening really in these companies. They never think about what is actually the issue, what are the workflows, the work streams that I need to do, what I'm doing on a daily basis. Because once you lay this out visually, you understand what's going on, you understand the different process steps that are prone to improvement. And this is where AI can help you too, to accelerate this process. What am I actually doing the whole day? You just jot things down, you just record yourself while you're doing this, and then you let AI create an SOP out of it. It was never so easy to do business process mapping than using AI and many more things. I think I covered a lot of ground here, but you can imagine there's a lot more to unfold that I share in other videos too. If you want to learn the ICOR methodology, which is the foundation behind all this, this is what we teach in our ICOR Journey courses, where we teach productivity end-to-end in a tool-agnostic way. No matter if you're using Notion, Tana, ClickUp, Asana, whatever, it all doesn't matter if you don't understand the fundamentals behind all this. And once you understand this, you become invincible to any tool changes. And maybe today it's Claude, tomorrow it will be OpenAI again, or even something else. We don't know. I can just say, Paco and I, we've experienced these switches to different tools so many times in our lives, and we always embrace these changes, looking for the next thing that makes us even more efficient instead of hunting down the next shiny object. That's the big difference. All we did is moving forward our already in place workflows and look for ways to make them even more efficient. But if you don't know what your workflow is yet, let's step back and start really at the beginning. And I really recommend join us in myICOR, download this scaffold for free, point your Claude onto it and just start working with it and just start comparing it with other things that you might use already. You might be really surprised what a difference this will make on your daily work and life. If you made it to the end, I thank you so much for joining. Let me know in the comments below. Are you already a member of myICOR? What's your experience with this so far? Do you use anything else? And be sure to subscribe so I can catch you up in the next one.